Hi everybody, my name is Mateusz and I work as a senior iOS developer at Passion, which is software house based in Warsaw, Poland. Today I would like to show you different point of view of MVVM architecture. I will try to answer some basic question. Does MVVM solve any particular problem? Do we need this solution? Does it help us with something? And why is it so popular? But at first I have to emphasize that I'm really proud of having really strong tech team in our iOS department, in our company. I don't say that because it seems to me or it's just my imagination, but it is based on my experience in cooperation with other companies. I do love unit testing to the limits. I know that nowadays every company speaks about unit tests. But not only do we speak about them, but we write them. So this is the difference. And I believe in TDD. So I write tests before real implementation. The agenda for today is as follows. To begin with, I will explain you briefly why I decided to do this presentation. Secondly, together we will answer the question, which technology does it come from? Furthermore, I will show you MVVM in the iOS world. In the end, we will look at alternative solutions. I will make some conclusions. Last but not least, there will be time for your questions, of course. But first of all, I would like to make really quick questionnaire. So please don't be afraid to raise your hand. I don't want to judge you. I just want to know how it looks here. How many of you use MVVM and like it? Okay, it's really good. How many of you have unit tests for your view models? Nice. How many of you write unit tests generally? Amazing. I'm really surprised. And how many of you write tests before real implementation in TDD approach, not after? Okay. Thanks. Why anti-pattern and what's wrong with MVVM? The answer is nothing. There is nothing wrong with MVVM itself. It's all about how people use this pattern. The thing is that they mix different concepts together, and the most important fact is that they do not comply with the basic programming rules, like solid. For me, as a programmer, it's the most important set of programming rules. It's a shortcut from single responsibility principle, open close, list of substitution, interface segregation, and dependency inversion. The thing which motivates me to do this talk was, of course, Swift code, even though it was quite challenging for me, like you can see here. Swift code, including mine 3 years ago, code which I saw in other companies, code available on GitHub, and tons of articles which promote MVVM as a golden mean for everything. But let's start from the beginning. MVVM. The first two words are self-explanatory. Model, view model. And the last, model and a view. ViewModel is an abstraction of the view which exposes public properties and commands. The most important part of MVVM is that it has a binder which allows us to automate communication between the view and properties in the view model. Do you know by whom and when MVVM was created? Any guesses from the audience? Microsoft. Really good answer. It was invented by Microsoft, of course, by Ken Cooper and Ted Peters to simplify event-driven programming for user interface. But it was introduced for the first time in 2005 by John Gossman, one of Microsoft WPF and Silverlight architects. What is WPF? Well, to put it simply, it's a graphical subsystem for rendering UI in Windows-based application. And it was released as a part of .NET Framework 3.0 in 2006. Let's look at the basic approach in the C# world. On this slide, you can see a simple customer ViewModel class written in C#. It keeps customer model in the first line. Then we have two properties, text customer name, which maps customer name property from a model, and text amount property, which maps amount property from our model. On the second slide, we can see also label amount color property. It returns color depend on value in a model. If it's higher than 2000, it returns blue. If it's lower than 2000 and higher than 1500, returns red, and so on. And property is merit. Nothing special. It's really easy. Secondly, we have a simple function which allows us to display our view model in UI. So basically, it's a code which binds our view model with the view. Here you can see the table which shows C# code on the left and respective XAML code on the right. So rather than writing the full C# code, you can use XAML code. But the best part of it is that you don't even need to write this binding code, because IDE allows you to generate this code automatically. So it's really, really powerful. The binding code is fully generated by IDE. As you can see, MVVM was created to solve concrete issue on a specific platform like WPF. In that case, it simplifies connection between C# code and XAML file. But let's dive into MVVM in the iOS world. The main problem with it is that, and it was in all implementation which I saw, that delegation of all action, all gestures, which happens in ViewController, are passed to ViewModel. ViewModel does something with it, and then anyway we need to get back to our ViewController and do any other logic. So it sounds definitely like unnecessary layer in our subsystem. You need to create binding, pass data to ViewModel, and then get callback from your ViewController and do something with it anyway. So it's really unnecessary for me. ViewModel means different things for different people, and I found two opposite definitions which describe very well how ViewModel is seen. And let's look at the first now. As you can see, it's quite long, but it's on purpose, don't worry. Let me read it now. ViewModel is an abstract object between a model object and a ViewController, which performs any data transformation necessary for presentation, as well as sometimes networking and database access, might do a little form validation, and any other task you feel like throwing in there, and acts as a jack-of-all-trades object originally intended to transfer weight away from your controllers, but ultimately creates a new kitchen sink for you to dump responsibilities into. So looking only definition like this, that is obvious that ViewModel do too many things. It was created by Soros Kanlo. He is famous from coordinator pattern. I want to show you my code from one of my previous projects. One ViewModel of many which we have. Well, I have to admit that I'm not quite proud of it, despite the fact that it has 100% code coverage. Apart from those properties which indicates the state of the UI, and it's quite simple, we have logic for We have functions for presentation logic, for network calls and pagination. It's still not the most hardcore example which I can show you. There are many like this. And you can ask, okay, but what is wrong with it? Let's analyze this code together. We have a logic for some view states. We have callback from presenting an alert and or a screen. A notification about refreshing list. Other nested view models. Another controller's delegate. Sorry, here. Another controller delegate. And system notification. I just want to remind you that it's just an interface, not specific implementation. So in the real class, it will be much, much longer. So for me, ViewModel like this is nothing else than trash. You put everything in here, and okay, you can say that your view controller now is super clean, and file is amazingly short, but it sounds definitely like a life hack. Do we really want to solve this problem like that? Let's get back to my ViewModel, which I showed you previously, and let's analyze all components. No, I mean all, not only ViewModel part. I will show you some numbers from this project. In this specific implementation, ViewController, which was binded to the safe list ViewModel, has 115 lines of code. Not bad. Binding has 119 lines of code, which was hidden in extensions, and ViewModel has 280 lines of code. It's definitely too much logic for simple object as ViewModel. And I want to say that everyone made mistakes, but it's much more important what will you do with this knowledge in the future. Let's look at the second definition of ViewModel, which is much, much simpler. ViewModel is a model for a view, isn't it? Yes, it is. ViewModel should be a dump struct, immutable struct, that is passed to view to populate its subviews. As simple as that, nothing else. Regarding my previous slide with the code, we have an equivalent of our messy ViewModel without action and network methods. We can see that it's a simple struct, description of our view, nothing else. Another example could look like this. It can store things like NS attributed string, UI image, other nested ViewModel, formatted price with number and currency, specific currency. Okay, I've already presented this safe list ViewModel, but now it looks much nicer. But what about those action methods? Those network methods, pagination, where we should put them? Let's think. Those methods definitely control something. So maybe we should put to the kind of class which has a troll inside. The thing which probably comes to your mind is, okay, but right now we will not improve anything because we will end up with our favorite architecture, MVC model ViewController, which causes that we start worrying that it will be massive ViewController. No, it won't. We don't like massive ViewControllers. Don't worry, we can handle this in a better way. With many ViewControllers. To prove that it works really well and it's scalable, I will provide you some data from application that we made at Alpassion 1.5 years ago. It was the biggest application which I made, and it was really huge. Real life example of, we have 235,000 lines of code, over 6,000 Swift files, 8,000 200 unit tests, 204 UI view controllers. Average file length was 37.23 lines. Code coverage was 99.2%. And file over 150 lines that does not compile. And only 88 files over 100 lines from those 6,000. And we have split our application into 8 frameworks. So it was much more efficient to work with specific part of our code. I know that it's really surprising and it blows your mind that this class should be responsible for controlling the view. It's even hard to guess by its name, yes? No, wait, it's not hard because it has controller inside its name. So I don't get it why people try to put it, and I do the same in the past. Put the whole logic to the magic object called ViewModel, which can do everything for us. We can easily split this ViewModel to separate classes, which will be consistent with an SRP rule. Services for API network calls, data providers, which allows us to transfer API response to be easily readable by the view, notification handlers for managing different types of notification, database repositories for storing objects, and many child controllers. It's only example. There are many other patterns in object-oriented programming which you can use. And fun fact, during the MC conference in 2015, guy from Facebook told us that the like button in the Facebook app is a separate UI view controller. So no, it's not overkill. Real life bugs. Now I will show you a basic application. It is really simple. It contains table view with items like you can see here. Nothing special. Each cell has a buy button, which shows us a confirmation alert if we really want to buy this product. And there is a possibility to go into details after tapping on item. And please pay attention to the fact that we are displaying the same amount of data on the list and on the details screen. So we have an image, the name of the product, price, some details info about shipment, and auction duration. So here you can see the same amount of data. And the logic for displaying an alert is totally the same. And here we use ViewModel, yeah? The most important part of this code is that we are passing the same instance of our ViewModel to our details view controller. A good reason to do this could be the fact that we don't want to make network call again for data and images. It won't be efficient. In our ViewModel, we have ID and title, closure, property button tap, which is a closure. It will be invoked every time when button is tapped. Present alert function, which allows us to display an alert, and buy product function, which do network call. I will show you two different implementations with Rx Swift and with closures. Let's look at the first one with closure. In Viewdidload function, we just set up our button tapped property, and inside it we are invoking present alert function. Just to remind you, we use the same instance on the list and on the details. And the final result of this specific implementation will be, of course, crash in runtime. Of course, we can easily fix this issue and set nil on our closure property every time when controller gets delocated, but it sounds more like a workaround. Let's look at video. And here we can see that we received crash. In the second example, we use Rx Swift for button tap trigger action. So basically it's the same code, but instead of having closure, we subscribe into some event stream and we invoke the same function. We can see that at the beginning we are displaying an alert. We have print here. We go into details controller. Do the same action, and we can see that list view controller was notified twice. So, sorry, for the second time. Even though we trigger action in our detail view controller. It works like that because we use the same instance, of course. Like you can see here, we don't have crash in runtime because we have dispose bug, which manage our subscription when controller gets delegated. So this is the difference. So you are trying to delegate everything from your controller to ViewModel, and then from your ViewModel to ViewController. So like I said, it's definitely unnecessary layer. Let's look at this image, which shows us the example of controller from the past application which I made, and who wants to bet? I will give you a mug. Yeah, I have mug. I will give you a mug for a good answer. How many view controllers are there? 3? No, it's quite close. It's close to 7. 8. Who said 8? Okay. Thank you. The correct answer is, of course, 8. 8. There is one parent which contains 5 children, and one of them contains another 2 children. This one. So together we have 7 child controllers and 1 parent. So correct answer is 8. I said previously that we had 204 UI view controllers. And I want to add that 75 of them were parents. So rest were child. Here we can see the specific part of our dashboard controller. This one, this parent. We have children factory dependency, which allows us to create our child controllers. It's nothing special. We create our controllers lazily because we don't want to run our life cycle inside initializer. It's really important because when some child invoke network calls, we don't want to make network calls in initializer. Initializer is a place to construct the object. And the second part is that we have child controllers array, which allows us to specify order of our controllers. And in Viewdidload function, we're just embedding our view controllers in stack view. It could be UI view, scroll view, and so on. It doesn't matter in this case. So, okay, many view controllers. I would like to raise an important issue. I had many questions like that, and I will show you some good argument why it's not a good idea to do that. So many view controllers, why not put it inside a view? Lack of life cycle, first thing. For example, you want to make a network call where you want to trigger network request. In most cases, which I saw, when someone put logic inside the view, I saw it was in initializer. it's not a place for invoking network calls. We need lifecycle for that. And ViewController gives you these things. Another argument, it's hard to reuse, because imagine a situation when you need to use the same view in other place, but with small difference. You already have your data to present, and in this case, you don't need to make network call. So it's, of course, doable, but you start thinking, okay, maybe I should extract this logic for invoke network call to another object. And my favorite statements, which I heard from people who want to still use MVVM. First thing, get rid of massive ViewController. One of the goals of MVVM on iOS is to clean up the mess of the responsibilities that are usually included in ViewControllers. But finally, it ends up with small ViewController and massive ViewModel. So I found a really good quote which sums this up. Extracting logic from ViewController to ViewModel is nothing else than moving the junk to a different drawer. You clean up one place and make a mess in a different one. So, or it's like extracting code, and it's my favorite example, from your controller for UI table view data source implementation to extension like this. And you can say that your view controller is quite short. For instance, it has only 80 lines of code, but it has 25 different extensions. Amazing. And I just want to say that it's hiding your problem. It's not a good solution to do that. Because imagine then you have unit tests for that, and you need to remember to test all those extensions. It should be in one class. Extension is a good place to put some transformation logic, some helper properties, but not putting implementation of the UI table view data source, like here. Another statement. MVVM makes my apps more testable. When I recall this argument, it makes me laugh because of the situation which happened in one of my projects. It's a real conversation with one of the developers. Let's look at this conversation together. Let's name this guy John. John, we do MVVM because it's really to test our view models. Me. Okay, so please show me the tests. We don't have them. Why? Because logic is quite simple. But you said that you made view models to extract the business logic from your view controllers because it was too complex. Am I right? Yes, it's true, and it's easy to test. Please keep in mind that you shouldn't have excuse to not test any code because it is too simple. I bet that if you don't write tests for simple code, and the reason could be, I don't know, because you don't know how to start. Trust me, it will be much more harder for complex code. So please write tests even though you think the logic is quite simple. Because it can start with one if statement and then someone have 25 different if statements. And logic start quite complicated. So with MVVM, our code is more testable, and without MVVM, is less testable. Really? You can answer this question on your own. And the last one. Because it's so popular and it's perfect solution with RX Swift. I have good argument to prove that MVVM is so popular. I recently have had 4 recruitment calls and everybody asked me about first thing. Do you use MVVM? I answered each of them that yes, and it's overkill to use it for me. Regarding this argument, I just want to say that it's not always good to follow the crowd, because potentially the hardest way could be the easiest one. And let's look at advantages of our MVVM. This is the only pros, and I'm wondering, nice way to keep state of the view, simple struct. And I'm wondering if using simple struct like this is still using MVVM architecture. It's hard to say for me, but I don't think so. And disadvantages. Each MVVM implementation which I saw broke up the single responsibility principle because it contains loading data from multiple API endpoints, has logic for filtering data, is very common. Logic for formatting string composed from several other values. Being a data source and delegates for UI table views or UI collection views. And logic for saving or persisting data. And poor reusability. A big amount of different things which happened in a single ViewModel class makes this class hard to reuse between different view controllers. There are too focused on formatting specific labels, being a delegate or data source of specific table view or collection view. Poor testability. Yes, because it's connected with an SRP rule. ViewModel handles big amount of logic and then it's hard to test, or at least understand what's going on under the hood. To be sure that we are on the same page, this is the kind of pain that can come with any other classes which are trying to do too much. The original, without bindings, is still more code to write. The original MVVM implementation, this Microsoft WPF, easily allows to create data bindings. This binding saves a lot of needless code, but here you need to write this code anyway. And three things, I would like to remember three things after this presentation. First thing, which I heard from the guy who is an architect in our company, and it's architecture and design patterns are to solve problem, not to create them. It doesn't matter it is MVVM, Viper, MVC. It's all about how you want to use it. For application which has 3 screens, it's overkill to use Viper. So for this example, MVC may be way to go. Most people choose MVVM because they want to get rid of massive view controller, but like I said previously, they end up with massive view model. So please don't put network calls, logic, and different action to your view model. Use your view model as a simple struct. And last but not least, don't repeat mistakes from your previous projects. It's really, really important. Because I did MVVM like I showed you, but it's really not efficient way to handle business logic in our application. Here you have all references which I used to prepare this presentation. And I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and I will be glad to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
I have a question regarding this production app you mentioned, 99% test coverage.
Yeah.
How do you handle dependency injection?
We use Swinject. Yeah, but so generally using Swinject, I would say dependency container pattern. But it doesn't matter that it's Swinject, yeah? Dependency container pattern. And for us is the best way.
I think with MVVM is like a mess on my desk.
Sorry, and Mac for you. Remember to...
So the mess for me is actually I can find everything. And when my mom comes and cleans the desk, I can find anything, but the desk is clean. So
yeah.
I think with MVVM, we also have like our mess. So when I see
You mean a mess in our view model?
yes,
Okay.
I expect to be the networking, and I think
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know how to say, but it's too popular to actually use this because everybody else uses it.
Yeah, so like I said, people use this because it's popular, but it's not a good argument because following the crowd is not always the best way, yeah?
Create your own layers is actually not super simple to understand for everyone because you can, of course, have naming, but also you can get a little bit lost.
Yeah, yeah, I thought...
Different layers because we can like function and the layers can be like 10 layers of one simple view controller.
Sure, I totally agree, and I agree with that we should have name convention in our project. So it's really important. It's not like that, for example, if we have 4 iOS developers in the team, and everyone makes different classes for doing the same things. So one makes ViewModel, another services, another some data providers, and different names. So it's really important to keep name convention. But like I said, it's really easy to have ViewModel like a simple struct because it contains only description, the state of our view. So I'm not sure if I answer your question because there wasn't specific question. So maybe you want to extend it. Okay, we can discuss later, of course. Any other questions? Yeah.
So when you have multiple view controllers
Yeah.
inside of your main screen,
Yeah. Inside parent. Yeah.
inside your parent controller, how does auto layout or layout in general figure out into this whole situation? Like, do you have to do manual layout? Can you still rely on auto layout to give you the size of your container? Or like,
Okay. So your question is how I manage auto layout inside the parent, basically having many view controllers. Yeah. Am I right? Okay. Okay, so I do this like this, that I just put some empty container view, empty UI view, and then I'm embedding these child controllers inside those containers. If, for example, I have, I don't know, 5 children, and I can use stack view because it is one after another, yeah? So it depends, of course, on the UI, but generally I put empty containers and I am embedding those controllers in Viewdidload in our parent.
and is the size of the child controller can be dynamic?
Yeah, sure, for sure. It's dynamic in most cases.
Dynamic in most cases.
Yeah.
Does the view controller like somehow communicate with the view to tell it like this is the size that I expect?
Yeah, I think I understand. Generally, we implement child controllers like that when I'm creating it without setting any constraint of height in parent, it can compute its height automatically. Usually, yeah. But of course, there are some exceptions, yeah. But generally, empty containers, child controllers can compute its height automatically, and we just put it there. So, for example, we had situation when our child controller was used in 5 different parents, and it only has different logic for putting data there. For example, one has filtered data, another one has in another case, we put everything there, and so on. So just, it depends on the specific case, but generally empty container, and this is answer for your question? Is okay. And you, second mark, we have only 2. Okay, so for you. Sorry, it's too late. Yeah.
What is your very nice speech, Mateusz? But I have the question: what is your favorite iOS pattern?
Okay.
And second, you mentioned about big project about 1.5 years ago, and what we can call this pattern which you use in last project?
Okay, what's the name of this pattern? Okay, so the first one was, sorry?
Favorite pattern.
Yeah, and it's a really good question, and I want to say that there is no something like favorite architecture. It depends. Like I said, if you have 3 screens in your application, I don't want to say, for example, Viper is my favorite and use Viper in 3-screen application because it's, come on, it's overkill. But if I have big project, we use some kind of Viper. So I would say that not Viper, strictly Viper, but we use some patterns from Viper architecture. So we had router for managing navigation because it was quite complex in this case, in this huge application. We have entities, views, and so on. So interactors, it was kind similar, but we use our own. And I would say that it's more like many ViewControllers architecture. So we had many parents which contains children, and it's not typical Viper architecture. And the second one was for not so this one, yeah. The answer is that many ViewControllers with Viper, some Viper patterns. Many view models for this view. What do you mean? Because I imagine that if you have a specific view, for example, with 2 labels, image and list, table view, for example, when we create view model, it's just a description of specific view. So you mean different types of our view model, or just another data for creating it?
Maybe let's say so. Different view model will not break the rule of the SRP.
Yeah.
So is it good case or
I Okay, so your question is basically, is it good to have several view models for single view? For sure, because in our implementation, Vue doesn't know about view models. So you can take any view model and create object presenter, which allows you to present this view model in our view. So you can have different presenters, different view models, and you can present this data how you want. So I don't see that is an issue. So of course, if Vue doesn't know about the view model, it shouldn't. Any other questions? Because we have still 5 minutes. Okay, okay sorry. Okay, so one more time, thank you.